Hi there, I am Will Bernholz, and we are here live at the Carbon Solutions Forum in sunny San Diego. And I'm really excited to sit down with a few really special participants at the Carbon Solutions Forum to get their takes on what we heard on day one and what we're looking forward to here on day two of CSF 2026. So first, I'm going to let our speakers introduce themselves. Reg, if you would take it away.
Sure, yeah. Good to be here. I'm Reg Manhas. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lapis Carbon Solutions. We're a CCS company based in Dallas, Texas, focused on decarbonizing industrial emitters. We've got two projects underway, one in Arkansas, decarbonizing an ammonia plant, and a second project underway in Illinois, decarbonizing two ethanol facilities.
I'm Monika Simoes. I'm the CEO and founder of Energy Dialogues, and Energy Dialogues is a convener in the energy space. We bring people and companies together like Lapis and really energy companies across the value chain for dialogue, but more importantly, to create connections, collaboration opportunities, and move the industry faster through pragmatic solutions.
Thank you for that. And so my first question for everyone is, we've had our first full day of the Carbon Solutions Forum. We've heard from regulators, we've heard from business leaders, we've heard from investors. What was the one or two things that stood out to you on day one? Reg, let's start with you.
Yeah, Will, I think this is my first Energy Dialogues Forum to attend, and I've been really impressed in terms of the participation. All of our key stakeholders are here in some form. The regulators from the EPA were here. A lot of the companies that we're competing against, but actually working with in other circumstances, they're here as well. Some of the key investors we are talking to currently are here. So it's a really great forum in terms of just the dialogue that you're having during the coffee breaks and over a glass of wine. In terms of the conversations yesterday, the one big takeaway I took was really around, and we talk about this all the time, but permitting reform. We've been pushing for it as an industry now for quite a long time, but you're seeing real momentum in that regard. And we've been seeing it as a company with groups like the EPA, but to have Scott Mason, the regional director from Region 6, come here and talk about permitting reform and their commitment to accelerate Class 6 permits, to accelerate the primacy process, was really great to hear. And their emphasis on the importance of stakeholder relations with the regulator themselves as being something that they really encourage is right down our fairway in terms of how we approach business. So I've been really impressed with that.
And one thing I took away from Administrator Mason's presentation was he was very straightforward, very clear, very plain on what the objectives he had were of his department, and the administration was to unleash energy and bring projects to fruition. So that was really great to hear. Monika, what about you?
What I found really interesting, one of the many things, was how here we're in La Jolla at the Carbon Solutions Forum in December. Will, you were there, North American Gas Forum. The conversations came from a different perspective, but were very similar in that regulatory certainty, permitting reform, we have to build things, we have to scale things. And so the conversations were around that. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very interesting how decarbonization over the last year has really been recontextualized, maybe, to talk also about affordability and cost. Mm-hmm. Yes, lower carbon, but we have to do it at a cost that is affordable and in a way that provides reliable energy, as we talk with data centers and hyperscalers, airlines. They're all here, which is really, really great to have them in the room.
Speaking of that, a couple sessions yesterday that stood out to me were the sessions where we heard from Google, where we heard from Microsoft, where we heard from FedEx, where we heard from Delta, these real industrial players who are in some ways the end users of electrons and molecules and turning those into consumer products and consumer services. From that standpoint, what you heard from those type of industry players, was anything surprising to you? Did you learn something that you didn't know or hadn't heard before?
I don't think I heard anything that was surprising. I think what was articulated is kind of what we're seeing in the marketplace in terms of, everyone is supportive of decarbonization, they're supportive of SAF, but those processes and those end products have to be cost competitive. And without that, you're going to have difficulty signing long-term contracts. You're going to have difficulty getting investment. So it's one thing to talk about decarbonization in the abstract, but we're at the point now where the business has to demonstrate its commercial viability. And that's what I think we heard reflected in a lot of the comments yesterday.
Monika, tossing the same question over to you. Anything surprising?
Not necessarily surprising, but I always like to be reminded and love to hear how this industry is such an innovator. There is so much technology that is advancing, that is happening. And now bringing in some of those hyperscalers and technology companies, it goes at an even higher speed because we talk about AI, we talk about the LLMs and everything that is, we're using it and we need more energy for that, but also how is it going to affect the how we're working more efficiently and better. I thought it was interesting. At some point we heard agents speaking with agents, which is both interesting and a little
Terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah. Especially when
So-
that's burning electrons and using fuel and consuming
Yeah,
water.
also, but I do think it helps us do things more efficiently. But I thought it was just very interesting to hear from those companies and their willingness and their prioritizing of available, scalable, affordable energy, and how they essentially they need the same thing that the energy industry needs, which is regulatory certainty and certainty of policies and making sure that there is an environment where we can make those investments.
Yep. I think when I think back to the last several years and hearing panels talk about their decarbonization agenda, one of the things that stood out to me this year, 2026, is that there is real projects that are underway, but there's also some projects which have not been able to get off the ground due to some of this regulatory uncertainty or due to some of the challenges facing securing financing for projects. Today, we have a really stacked agenda, and we're going to be hearing from more of those industry players, specifically finance. We have a few panels on that topic. Reg, if you would, talk to me about what are you hoping to hear today, specifically when it comes to financing projects or when it comes to getting projects off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of topics I'm really interested in this afternoon. One being a deeper dive into the data center side of things and really understand the economics. I think at the end of the day, it's easy to say we want decarbonized power for a data center, but who's going to pay for it? Where does the last dollar come from? Can you make it economically work such that the sequestration party, has an economic case as well? And I've yet to see that happen. So I'm really interested to kind of see the dialogue around that this afternoon. And that leads to the financing session, I think, towards the end of the day, where, as I mentioned to you all, we are in a fundraising process ourselves right now at Lapis, and we've had really great feedback. But there's a perception in the investment community around the quote-unquote binary risk of these permits. And so the whole issue around permitting reform, EPA, financing, it really is an important issue for us. So I'm interested to hear how that issue is evolving and whether the perception of risk around CCS is beginning to reduce. And I think that once projects come up to speed and begin operating safely and sustainably, our hope is that investor appetite will increase. But we're still in the midst of that process. So I'm interested to kind of hear perspectives on kind of where things sit.
And Monika, to just add a similar but perhaps a different spin, this is the third year of the Carbon Solutions Forum, but the 15th year you've been organizing events in this industry. What are you hoping is going to be different in terms of the conversations today, or what do you expect to be different from last year or previous years?
What I'm seeing is there is more emphasis on pragmatism, on doing what actually can be financed, what actually is going to move forward, and seeing more of that. So I would echo, but I'll try and put a different spin on it. But the conversation around data centers, certainly, and then the financing piece, because in any industry, anywhere, unless we can actually finance it and make it commercially viable, it doesn't work long term. So I'm encouraged, and I think I'm very optimistic in how we focus on that pragmatism. That's something at Energy Dialogues we've done from pretty much day one. It's been a journey. We've done more and more of that. I'm also very interested in hearing today as well, and I heard a lot of that yesterday, is the synergies. right? What are the synergies needed? Because that's where energy dialogues can come in and help make some of those connections. Who needs to work more with whom? Who needs to connect with whom? Because one of the things that kept returning yesterday is we can't do it alone. We need collaborations. Someone mentioned multi-synergies and multi-benefits and how we can maximize those. And so understanding more of that, hearing more of that will allow us at Energy Dialogues to continue doing even more of what we do and serving the industry and making sure that the people who need to be in the room are indeed there and the people who need to sit at the table are there and then make things happen.
Great. Okay, final question, speed question round. If we had the opportunity to sit down here next year and have a conversation, what's one prediction you have for the next year?
I think that in terms of the CCS sector, I think this time next year, you're going to see real projects operating. You know, our first project is scheduled to begin injection by the end of 2026. We're really excited about that. So I hope to come next year and talk about a real project that's really injecting CO2. We've actually got the 45Q process moving. And I think that will help, not just our project, but that'll help the industry itself in terms of all these projects that are kind of close to fruition. Then the dialogue changes at that stage, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
Monika?
CCS, geothermal, and EOR. I think those are the three technologies we've heard a lot about yesterday. I think geothermal is sort of new over the last year. We talked about it a lot. And I think those are three very promising ways that we can move forward and actually make real impact today. I always like that expression, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We can do real emissions reduction through those technologies. They're not the only ones. We'll come up with new ones and improved ones, but let's talk more about that. So I think I would love to have more of an emphasis on that next year.
I think for me, if I was to make a prediction, I think the rest of this year and through the beginning of 2027, we're likely to see, at least my guess is, additional pressure on the hyperscalers, on the companies that are creating, launching, and deploying these the AI models to help share and bear some of the burden when it comes to the energy costs. And so I think they're willing to do so. They say they're very willing to do so. And what I think is actually very cool is they also have these net zero commitments and these clean energy sourcing commitments that could drive some real impact when it comes to what are the generation assets that come online, what are the carbon capture projects that get deployed. And so I'm predicting that AI demand is actually going to be a really good driver ultimately for our more energy, less emissions agenda.
I think it's a huge potential enabler. Like having those types of companies part of the conversation is a game changer.
Absolutely.
100% agree.
Okay, well, Monika, Reg, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and looking forward to another full day at Carbon Solutions Forum. We'll see you next time.